This morning we found out New Zealand went into recession in the fourth quarter of 2023, so I guess you could say it's official, we're in recession.
It's the economy. It's all about the economy, stupid. Hey, hello, I'm Mike Bain from Christian Voice New Zealand. I want you to go back to the US presidential campaign of 1992, where the incumbent president George H.W. Bush had an approval rating of 90% of the job that he was doing. So you have to ask the question, how was it that this young buck, this young Democrat, Bill Clinton, unseated him? Well, regardless of where you live, and your leader may be the most popular person to ever hold office, as did George Bush, but when your country's in a recession, someone's got to fix it. So a simple phrase cooked up by James Carville, who was a strategist on the Clinton campaign, and it was also used by Bill Clinton in a debate with Bush, brought people's attention back to reality. The country was in the middle of a recession when Bush was in charge. Now, history tells us that Clinton was successful in the end, but history also shows us that money worries in the US have exploded ever since. It's the economy, stupid, and in New Zealand and every other country in the world, it's always been about the economy. Without a good economy, without prudent stewardship, without overspending, life just hangs in the balance and nothing else matters. You know, New Zealand's economy has just returned into a recession after predictions of a reduced export earnings and inflation. They're all factoring into the cost of living crisis for all of New Zealand. Now, I'm not going to comment on the management or lack thereof, or the vandalism brought about by the idealistic former student union or the left-wing progressives that were in charge. As we all know, they were wrong. Just a pity that they couldn't admit it. Anyway, going back to the United States for a moment. Their economy is sinking, and it's taking on water faster than the Titanic, and it'll sink sooner than expected. Now, Sleepy Joe, the President, Joe Biden, has recently had to get approval from Congress for the Treasury to print another $1 trillion and have it released into its economy. Why? Well, because there just wasn't enough money to pay to keep government services operating. So they had to invent it. For those who have paid attention, you'd know that the Reserve Bank of New Zealand has also printed money beyond the value of what it has held in government stocks and bonds. In other words, we have more money in our system, which results in our dollar having less value, resulting in less spending power. Now, the current coalition government went into this election knowing that our economy was in a mess, but it wasn't until they took control they could see, and perhaps just recently, are comprehending the economic conundrum that they're facing. Other world economies, in the meantime, they've recovered from COVID, but New Zealand is flailing in its recovery, and it's not a quick fix. So, as a country, we've got to pull together in order to get this nation's economy back on track. Yeah, I know. Sounds like a political slogan, but it's true. Our children's grandchildren will be paying down on the interest that the government of the past 6 years has either borrowed or created if we don't. Now, while the populists jump on every gravy train going where they can find ways for governments to spend oodles of money, whether it be climate, carbon emissions to save the future of the planet, what good would it be when your economy, hence your spending power, is limited? The United States economy has looked shaky for decades. The euro, as we see every day, is also in trouble as governments look to destabilise their own economies. For sure, there are troubling signs forecasting a major worldwide recession. So let's add to what we've been speaking about, with a worldwide shortage of food now starting to bite into some countries as we see grain exports from both Ukraine and Russia diminishing. And European governments, believe it or not, they're forcing farmers from their lands and encouraging those who remain not to grow food. I know, it all sounds bizarre, but you simply don't hear about the protest in Europe because our mainstream media, well, they're more interested in navel-gazing and their own opinions rather than reporting fact. But it's about the economy. And last year, we here at Christian Voice New Zealand, we were mentioning these things, but we also spoke about the effects of the ride of the four horsemen that's found in the book of Revelation and the impacts it'll have on the world. We're now in that time period where very soon you won't need to visit the supermarket. It'll only be for the rich who can afford a loaf of bread. So look at the signs. Take a good hard look at what's happening in New Zealand. I mentioned just weeks back the world's rich people are divesting themselves of companies and shares, and they're building shelters. Have you noticed that New Zealand's top companies, the ones that have been a sure bet for investment, are doing pretty much the same as they divest their capital? Let's face it, as we move into this brave new world that the economists are all talking about, where cheap labour will soon be gone. Your job will be carried out by a robot, and you'll have nothing, and you'll be happy. So they tell us. But just like the storm clouds of war were covering Europe last century, we can see the same thing happening today. And we understand the significance of what is happening in the rest of the world will affect us here in New Zealand. But right now, the last thing the New Zealand economy needs is for the rest of the world to crumble. My friends, the trumpets in heaven are sounding. Can you hear them? Heed the call to action. Yes, it's about the economy, but it's about you yourself and your understanding of the times in which we live. In order for us to survive what is to come, and they will be dark days ahead, we must know from where our salvation will come from. The world's politicians, the world's leaders, they can promise the earth, they can scrap about borders, about dominion, but for what end? They're only in place for one reason and one reason only, and that's by the grace of God. But what happens when God says, I've had enough? If we can no longer look after this planet, and to do so it needs money, then we know it's money which makes the world go round, and we have none. Then does the world stop? So is it really all about the economy? Really, the answer is no. Yes, money and riches aid today's world. You've heard the saying from the World Economic Forum who says, yep, you'll own nothing and be happy. Yeah, right. If that were true, why is it that we all toil for something we can't achieve? Is it really about the economy, or is it something greater than that? We're living in prophetic times, and can I suggest you have a look at our video on the ride of the four horsemen, or you can read about it yourself, or better still, ask your local church for an explanation. Either way, those divesting in capital may or may not be aware of this piece of prophecy from Revelation 6, which I'll read for them. And there it says, then the kings of the earth, the princes, the generals, the rich, the mighty, and everyone else, both slave and free, well, they hid in caves and among the rocks of the mountains. They called to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come, and who can withstand it? James Carville from the Clinton campaign may have called his opposition stupid when he coined the phrase, it's all about the economy, but hopefully, we're not too stupid to understand it's more than that.